So if you have a man in the lake and he's drowning and he doesn't know how to swim, and you sit there, it's like, listen, I'm going to teach you how to swim so you don't drown. That's not going to work. The person's going to drown before you finish teaching him. So when a person or a company is in that state where they're kind of drowning, they're trying to get 10 hours of work done in an 8-hour shift, that type of thing. The first thing you want to do is have a seasoned expert to solve some immediate problems with so that the company, the staff, they're not drowning.
Hello, welcome to a new episode of the Industrial Kingdom podcast, the manufacturing and agriculture show of the MENAT region. And continuing with our series of Meet the Experts, today I am really happy to be introducing Mr. Desi Narayan, our expert in process optimization, automation, and many other really exciting specialties that he will give us some time to explain about. Hi, Desi.
Hey, good to see you, Valerie.
Thank you for joining. So Desi is joining us all the way from Toronto, Canada.
Yeah.
So it must be cold. I'm really, really glad that you are part of this consortium and you bring a nice, fresh North American perspective to our practices. And we will see now during this interesting discussion how these will be beneficial to our clients as well to our viewers. So the first thing I wanted to tell you about your introduction, your intro on LinkedIn is very interesting to me. So you say companies place a great deal of focus on sales to drive revenues. While absolutely critical, an efficient operation can often erode actual profits pretty quickly. So it's true. Usually we're thinking about production, sales, revenue, and it's always good to take that step back to see how you can help those sales at a much earlier stage, so a way to increase your profits. So can you tell me a bit about that? How did you reach that? And tell us a bit about your career path.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, um, the conversation you mentioned about sales and production. So, it's pretty typical to have a tension between sales and production. So, sales wants to sell everything, but that makes numbers. And production, we want to produce what we're able to produce easily and effortlessly. So, there's always that tension between sales and production. So, if you're able to kind of look at the products that you sell and do a little bit of analysis, a little bit of napkin math to see which are the products that make us a lot of money, which are the ones that have lots of margins, and which are the ones, the steady runners that are easy for us to produce, then you can take that collection and start to schedule things, take on orders that does expand your production capabilities, but also it makes it easy for the production part of the company to make money as well. Otherwise, they're always fighting with themselves, trying to produce things that, maybe they haven't produced in a while or are a bit more complicated for their equipment. So finding that right mix of product sets to produce and having a bit of a tighter conversation between sales, product development, and production would kind of remove a lot of those, frustrations.
True, absolutely. So how did you get into this? It's kind of a narrow niche, if
Yeah.
you a niche industry, but it's much needed. However, we don't always think about it.
Yeah, it's I
Yeah.
actually got into it by accident. When I was in high school, a lot of manufacturing companies they needed sort of young people to go inside equipment and collect information. And when you're in high school trying to save money for university, you're willing to take on any job. So I started getting into manufacturing equipment, into maintenance programs, into data collection, and that paid for my university. Later on in life, I met my girlfriend, which is my wife of 20 years, and she said, "Listen, you keep doing all this operational stuff in the evenings and the weekends. Why don't you just start a company and do it?" And I told her, "Listen, no one's going to pay me to do this. So just to prove her wrong, I got a client with a fake contract, and I did the work, and they sent me a check." And I was like,
Wow.
"Okay." So that was 2005, and I've been doing it ever since. So maybe
So
I got
you
to
can
thank my
also
wife.
you can give relationship advice as well to men to listen to their wives or girlfriends.
That's a good one.
A
That's a
bit
good point.
sometimes, I guess.
Yes,
This is
absolutely. So
great.
that's how I
So
got into it.
basic, yeah. So you're like more you've learned it hands-on,
Yeah,
not theoretical.
yeah, I've learned it hands-on, and also I eventually got my, of course, my Lean Six Sigma black belt and my Lean Six Sigma master black belt. I'm also a contributor to the body of knowledge in North America. So we put all the certifications and all that stuff behind us as well. But at the same time, real life experiences, real life professional projects to work and solve through. That forms the bulk of our, of my knowledge kind of thing.
Totally. And this is why you're an awesome addition to the Industrial Kingdom team, because this is really the concept around which this company is built. Is people that have had a lot of actual experience, of course, with the theoretical knowledge and the credentials, but they
Yeah,
can come in to the client, or the client can come to, and they can kind of have their finger on the on the pain point, and I'll say, oh yeah,
absolutely.
I've had something similar, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that will spark in your brain when even a
Yeah.
new situation comes up.
Yeah, and it's also the cross-industry experience because we work in manufacturing, financial services, research and development, healthcare, and interestingly enough, like if you're in manufacturing, there may be a type of solution in healthcare or construction services that's relevant to manufacturing, but because you stay in manufacturing, you may not be aware of those things. So when you work in across industries, we're actually sharing best practices and solutions from other industries. So
Nice, interesting perspective. Yeah. So um so we face this kind of how do I say it, like a idea about when you're so busy in the manufacturing process, you're running your factory, and you want to improve processes. Like, how
yeah.
do you actually stop and take the time to do that? How do you manage that? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, so the example I like to use is like teaching a drowning man how to swim. So if you have a man in the lake and he's drowning and he doesn't know how to swim, and you sit there, it's like, listen, I'm going to teach you how to swim so you don't drown. That's not going to work. The person's going to drown before you finish teaching him. So when a person or a company is in that state where they're kind of drowning, they're trying to get 10 hours of work done in an 8-hour shift, that type of thing. The first thing you want to do is have a seasoned expert to solve some immediate problems so that the company, the staff, they're not drowning. So sometimes we say giving people space to breathe. So now when people have a little bit of space to breathe, it might be 15 minutes, it might be 1 hour, it might be half a day. In that space where you have some attention available, that's when you get some targeted advice on how to improve just one little thing. We're not looking at the big picture, we're not looking at strategy, but we're going to make a small amount of improvement in a particular area. Now that place has a little bit of breathing room. And you keep repeating this until collectively there's a little bit of breathing room to start a more disciplined kind of transformation. But that's typically the starting point.
Yeah, I like that term, place to breathe, because managing this work is so stressful. Like, how can you bring a level of sanity into this industry, into this kind of job?
Yeah, that's the one thing is to have the right expertise, create that breathing room. Another thing to do is sometimes we take big tasks and we try to chunk them out. We try to do all of it in one kind of sitting. So an important concept in manufacturing, and it comes from some of the methodologies in Japan, we call it level loading. So level loading, I give an example. I hate to do housework. I just hate housework. I would rather mow my lawn or fix my house, but housework is something that I hate. But don't have a choice, have a house, have to do it. So rather than typically most people in Canada and North America will do all the housework on the weekend. But what I do is I do 20 minutes a day, 7 days a week. So when I'm able
Nice.
to, yeah, so when I'm able to do 20 minutes a day, 7 days a week, at the end of the day, I'm not sort of overwhelmed by so much things to do on a particular day. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
simple example, but it's a very powerful concept in manufacturing called level loading. And many of us psychologically think that way. Psychologically, we like to do similar tasks all at once, and then we get overwhelmed. So if you can get a little bit disciplined about breaking your tasks and spreading them across 7 days or whatever the schedule is, you can actually make things, because what happens is in manufacturing, everything goes up and down, everything goes up and down. So there's really busy days and sometimes quieter days. But if you can level load it, it gives you the sense of sanity and calmness, and that's what it does. So applying level loading to purchasing and manufacturing and engineering is a great idea.
Usually, when you kind of come in and do an assessment, like let's say a client is facing some bottlenecks or some stressful steps of a manufacturing process.
Yeah.
I like the concept of level loading. How does the existing operation receive that? Like, because you said something really true. Like usually most of us humans,
Yeah.
we like to kind of push it and do the difficult things once.
Yeah.
These people that are used to doing the same thing over and over again, now you come in and you try to redirect their workflow, or like
Yeah.
kind of impose a more disciplined way of doing things. How is that accepted? How is that taken?
Yeah, so we do it, and this is a very old traditional technique. What we do is we take the company, work with the management team, and then we say, we're going to take this company, we're going to find one place where we're going to create a level of perfection. We don't care about the rest of the company, just one place. And that place
No,
is, yeah, that place might be the bottleneck of the factory. It might be the place where there's the most problems, but we're going to pretend that we see nothing in the factory except that one place. And we're going to create a center of excellence in that one place. We're going to change the culture, the management, the operations, the equipment in that one tiny place. What happens is that place outperforms every other part of the factory. So you start to see supervisors and operators and managers, they start to look at that place and say, well, how the heck are you doing that? I want to know what that is. So you start to create a pull system for knowledge and experience, and everyone wants to be like. And now, when you have that natural desire to be like that, it draws in more mentorship, draws in more coaching, draws in more knowledge. That's what happens. That's what we try
nice.
to do.
So interesting. And in order to select that center, what would you take? Like a problematic area, or you just agree with the management, or with your
Yeah,
POC?
yeah, so that we work with the management to look at, so that's where we take a broader picture and we kind of map the end-to-end flow. I mean, we don't take like 10 days to do it. In a sort of a half a day or a full day, we just kind of map from dock to dock. So from customer order to shipping. And when you kind of just map the whole thing in maybe, 6 to 10 steps, it's pretty quick. You can look at it to see which one is the longest lead time. Because no matter what you
Yes.
do, the step that's got the longest lead time is going to bottleneck the entire, production system. So, irrespective of what people think, we're going to pick a piece of that bottleneck to work on, because that's going to alleviate the entire value stream, right? So we're going to pick that. Even though
Yeah.
operators might want to work on here, we're
Yeah.
going to pick the bottleneck because that creates some financial benefits as well.
I love it. I really think this is going to be so beneficial to many customers. Okay, so another kind of usual complaint, or let's say obstacle we face in our daily lives at work, is we barely have enough time to get through the days of the week.
Yeah,
How do you find time to improve the operations? Like we've touched on a bit earlier, like you
yeah,
said, teach a man how to swim, right? But
yes,
how do you find time to learn how to swim?
yes, yes,
Sometimes you're like, oh, I don't need to swim. Okay, I
yes.
live in the mountain. Let's say that. But eventually, you're going to be nearby a body of water, and you're going to need to swim. So how would people running factories or operations like that would manage taking the time to stop and assess and kind of do that
Mm.
excavation work?
That's a fantastic question. So, I mean, it's a common problem because the manufacturing is a very intense kind of environment. It brings in a lot of things, supply chain, engineering, production together. So what I always try to do in that particular area, I look at a big problem and I find a smaller version of it. I'll give you an example from my personal life. I might try to organize my entire house, and I know that's going to take, weeks and weeks to do, but I'm going to pick my wife's shoe closet and I'm just going to
Oh yeah, of course.
organize. So
Okay.
she has a couple of hundred shoes that I don't remember
Woo!
her wearing. So,
We
so
must meet her.
yes, so the
Lady
whole,
of quality.
yes.
Okay.
So what happens is, even though we've taken a smaller problem, interestingly, many small problems have the same elements of the big problem,
Yes,
right?
true. I'm thinking
So,
of my shoe collection now, and I
yeah.
do have the same problem in other areas. Okay.
So what happens
Okay.
is, if you take a small problem and people learn the methodologies to solve that small problem, so it didn't take much time because it was a small area, a small space, but they've got the same learning. Now they're better equipped to take on a bigger problem. Now, if we just try to
Mm-hmm.
take a factory transformation and they're trying to do that, it's going to take years and years and years. But if we
Yeah.
break it up into small little pieces, they're solving problems. Also, in the process of solving the problems, they're acquiring tools and techniques and skills that make it more efficient to solve the big problem. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, we're going to look at the big picture that might be in the hands of the coach and some senior management, but we're going to quickly narrow down to a very, very small problem so that we can quickly learn some skills and apply it elsewhere.
And would you say, of course, every case is different depending on the size and the nature of the industry, but would you say this is a lengthy process to actually be able to implement the recommendations that you reach at the end of the assessment?
It's not that lengthy. I mean, when we do an assessment, for example, quickly look at a company and within a week figure out, this is where you are today, this is where you want to be in the future, and here's the set of actions or the transformation plan that you need to sort of implement. We break up those actions into different categories. So there's things that are what we call just do it. We've learned from here. We just need to go do this. I can hire a few students. I can give them some guidance, and they can just do it. There's other things that can be done in a short amount of time, right? Workshops done in 3 days and 4 days or 5 days, and then we get those going. And then there's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a few things like digital transformations and ERP systems that might take months to do, and they get managed in a project life cycle, right? So you're doing a little bit
Mm-hmm.
every day or every week. So if you break the projects up into just do it, workshops, and also projects, you start to get some immediate results right now. At the same time, you're working towards some long-term results. If we just get
I
a
see.
company to work towards long-term results, they're going to peter out, because they want some results immediately as well.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I like how you approach this. It has a lot of psychology as well, right?
Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah. Can you give us like an interesting example of if it's possible,
Mhm.
to talk about it, of a place you've been, like a factory that had some kind of bottleneck or a problem they were facing, and you were able to help them
Yeah, absolutely. So
in the
many years,
manufacturing.
yeah, in manufacturing. So many years ago, we did a work on a food production, on a system, and it's a very large food production. It's a meat processing plant. So you have obviously cattle coming in, they process it. There's meat coming out, that type of thing. And one of the things that was
Where is it located?
this is in Canada. Yeah,
Okay.
it's in North America. And one of the issues that they have is when they measure the amount of incoming material and measure the amount of outcoming material, there's a difference of about 20%. So they're losing 20%. But everywhere they look, they can't find they can't find any losses. So they're wondering, is it a measurement system? Is it this? Anyways, it turns out that over a 24-hour period, they're losing a microscopic amount that's not visible, but in the entire system, when you're using a tiny little bit of product, but it's happening across 24 by 7, it works out to be 10%. So the only 10 to 20%. So the only thing we did, all the valves connecting the pipe, all we did was replace the gasket with a different type of gasket.
A
That's all we did.
gasket. That
That's
one.
it. So, but you see, it requires a disciplined approach to look at
Of
that
course.
system and to be able to find out that it was the gasket. I
Wow.
remember I got a call from the president, and he said, I have guys working here for 30 years and they couldn't figure this out. How did you do it? And that's when they started their first formal lean program as well, so that you can
How
get
did
some
you
of the.
do it? I'm asking you the same question.
Yes, so that was we take an approach whenever you're trying to find a non-intuitive solution. It's an approach called the DMAIC approach, and it stands for 5 letters: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So I know
Okay.
it's a lot to remember, but it's a statistical data-oriented process where you define the problem, you measure it with data collection methods, analyze, get to the root cause, and then you get to the corrective action, which is the solution. So when you use some of these statistical approaches for hard to discover issues, you can get some very, very. So imagine the company. All they had to do is replace gaskets, and they recovered 20% of their material. That's a very,
Yeah,
very small investment for a huge return, and
of
that's
course.
those kinds of formal, kind of more disciplined, rigorous approaches are useful for these kinds of problems.
Yes, yes. And these are the things that are, I guess, non-intuitive, I would,
Yes,
like you said, no? Yeah.
yeah.
Because probably the staff or like the company was looking in the usual places they would look.
Yeah, everyone typically, when they see a problem, for example, we have too much inventory, we need more racks. They go to where they see the symptom, which is the racks. But
Yeah.
when you look at racks and you have too much inventory, it might be a purchasing issue, it might be a production consumption issue. So sometimes the symptom is here, but the root cause is somewhere else, and that requires a little bit of experienced, consulting to help you figure that out.
And a kind of probably like an outsider's view as well. Like when you're in it, it's
Yes,
different. Mm.
yes.
So, third question I would like to ask you. Actually, it's more than three. I have a lot
Mhm.
of questions, but we're gonna have to have another session and where we will cover specific topics. But today is to introduce you and kind of discuss your broad specializations and all the value you bring to our amazing team.
Wonderful.
So, when someone wants to transform their operations, but they're kind of it's fine, it's not perfect, it's not ideal, but they know there's room to improve. How would they go about that the way that minimizes risk and cost as well to the business? Because
Yeah,
sometimes it's scary to change, you're
yeah.
like, okay, it's working, I know I can do it better, but there is you are scared to take the risk and you are scared as well of the cost.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely, absolutely. That's a great question. What I would suggest is to start off small, which is just get an assessment done for your production facility from beginning to end. Get it done by an experienced person who's seen hundreds of factories, so that if you get a junior person doing an assessment, they're going to take 3 weeks to do the assessment, and they're going to give you a 100-page report, and you're not going to know what to do with it. But if you get an experienced person to do an assessment where they've seen hundreds of factories, they're going to quickly be able to map that process and tell you pretty quickly your key issues are. It could be equipment maintenance, it could be a supply chain, it could be your customer order process. You're going to quickly find
ah,
what those key issues are, come up with a transformation plan, which is who's going to do what by when, and then prioritize those particular actions. So there, within a week, you know what your current state looks like, what a potential future state looks like, and you have a set of 10 to 15 actions that you can work on. And then as a
nice.
company, you mitigate the risk because you can say, listen, I want help on those two. I'm going to push those two out to next year, and I'm going to try this one on my own. You get to make those choices on your own, and it's much more cost effective.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of it's it makes it less scary. That's not, of course, not
Yes.
scary, but less of a big thing when you approach it in this way. So you speak a lot about lean manufacturing.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about your outlook on that?
Yeah, so I mean, lean manufacturing is a way of life for me. So I run our families, and we run our business, and everything we do, we use using those principles. And if you take of all of lean manufacturing, it's really consistent of what I call 4 pillars, and we have an acronym for that. We call it MIST. So MIST is like a spray bottle that you can spray on your organization and liven it up. And it's a simple
Nice.
acronym. It's a simple acronym. It stands for maintain, improve, study, and transform. So the idea is we need to know what we need to do to maintain our organization, what we need to do to slightly improve it, what are the things that we need to study about our industry, and what transformations do we need to make to beat our competitors and become even more profitable. So it's always maintain, improve, study, transform. That's the kind of framework. It brings all of lean manufacturing, all of Six Sigma, it brings it all together into a sort of tight framework. And so, for example, if a company doesn't have things like SOPs, like procedures and maintenance manuals, they're really in the maintain piece. They need to kind of fix that piece first before they move into improve, before they move into study and transform. So our methodology is looking at a company and seeing where they are in terms of the 4 pillars and just giving them exactly what they need so that they can make progress right now.
We were talking about the MIST system, and I was asking you that this process can be applied to companies in different stages of their development. Is that
absolutely? Yeah, it's a system to help you become, whether you're small or big, to become a scalable system, so that if you choose to grow, you can grow efficiently. Many companies that grow, they break themselves in the process of growing.
Yes.
And so this just allows you to grow in a scalable way. And not all companies want to or need to grow.
Yes.
But if they do,
You read my mind. I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
How do they benefit if like they're not really looking to grow, but they want to improve, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you something interesting about human psychology. All the things that we like, most of the things that we like have nothing to do with efficiency, right? So when you go for a nice walk in your neighborhood, you don't want to go on a fast walk, you want to enjoy it. When you go on a vacation, you don't want to plan every minute, you want to just be able to have a free vacation. So the point of MIST is to take all the things that we have to do, squeeze them into the smallest amount of time, so that we can take off and do the things that we want to do. So the MIST in itself, being structured about things, is not the thing that captivates the human spirit. It's the thing that gets into the way of the human spirit. So we put it into this bucket so it doesn't bleed into the rest of the time, right? So that we can be casual in life and have relationships and conversations and do the things that are not time bound. If you think about the things you care about, your family, your kids, your hobbies, all of those things are the most inefficient things in the world. And we want them to be that way.
Yes.
Right. So the idea is to structure it.
Nice. This really is I'm sure there's a lot. You can talk for 10 hours, I'm sure, and I can listen to you for 10 hours and ask you lots of questions, which will extend it more. But thank you for this really great introduction. So Desi, now as people are listening on Spotify or watching us on YouTube or on our socials, when would a client or a business owner be approach you at when he's looking for what, let's say?
Yeah. So if you're a business owner, every business owner is going to have some kind of financial statement. They're going to look at their revenue, they're going to look at their expenses, and they're going to see how much, margin they're making, or how much, what's their profitability. If you're a business owner and you look at that and somewhere you're thinking, you know what, I could be more profitable. I don't know how, but I have this feeling on the inside as a founder, as an owner of the business, there's more profitability to be had. That's the time to call someone like us to say, what is the operational transformation I need to take to be more profitable? So that's the voice of the owner of the company. If you're a middle manager or an engineer, for you, it might be like, you know what? I'm working 10 hours a day, but I'm only getting paid for 8. Every time I go home I'm frustrated. I don't have the energy to be with my family. If that's the case, then that's another desire to apply these. So where there's frustration in the system or a financial opportunity to be a little bit more efficient, that's the place to start. If you wait till everything gets all kablooey, then it's a bit more difficult. So.
Which also kind of brings one last question, I promise. Mm-hmm. So would these concepts be able to be implemented if someone is starting a business, like an investor or someone creating like a new plant? something new. Should they only think of optimization on their existing operation, or can this be applied to new projects?
Oh, 100%. The best thing is if you have the wisdom and the awareness to do it right in the beginning. So a lot of companies do
Would it be
hire.
too costly to do it from the beginning?
It's
Or
actually
maybe
cheap.
I think it would be less costly, no? Because the problems are not there yet. So,
Yeah,
no?
so you're spending 10% of the money to prevent problems rather than another 80% to rework problems that you created initially, right? So you can set up the supply chain system the way it should be. You can set up the factory layout in the most efficient, lean kind of way. You can create an org chart that has the most efficient decision-making structure. So if you do all these stuff, then I won't have a job in the future, but that's good for you, right? So that's the most efficient way to do it.
Wonderful. So thank you again, Desi, and thank you to everyone watching us, listening. Send us your emails or questions to the email below, and remember to follow us on social media, LinkedIn, subscribe to our YouTube channel, on Facebook, Instagram, and on Spotify. And I'll say goodbye and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.